Governor Herbert, thank you so much for meeting with us today. So, of course, just a short time ago, Speaker McCarthy lost the speakership. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I think it's kind of a sad day for America. It's certainly not a good day for the House of Representatives. I think this has never happened before like this. And, you know, it's all about, we had Democrats and Republicans come together and vote on a budget resolution so the government didn't shut down. And I'm puzzled about why is it bad to have Democrats and Republicans coming together to pass policy. So that's disappointing to me. And again, we've had shutdowns in the past, and usually the Republicans have been leading that charge for a variety of good reasons, but they end up paying a price at the polls. So it's not only bad policy, but it's probably bad politics.
You mentioned that budget resolution. It, of course, moved it for 45 days. 45 days from now, there'll be another vote to keep the government funded. How does losing the speaker affect that?
Well, we just have entered into a new phase of chaos. You can't really do anything until you have a speaker. And they've got kind of a rotating group of 6 or 7 that are going to take times to take care of already pending legislation. But that's going to come to a screeching halt until we get a speaker. And I don't know who they plan to bring forward, but to get somebody that has more votes than Speaker McCarthy, I think it's going to be a hard thing to do. The Democrats, of course, are sitting back there saying, hey, isn't it fun watching this circus and see the tent of the Republicans burn down? So they're not really inclined to do anything. And we've got some uncertainty in the Republican side, and I think that's going to be a problem. So chaos will continue, and that's not good for the American public.
Is it reasonable to think that whoever the next person is who takes up the speakership mantle could improve things, make it work more smoothly, or do you expect worse chaos?
Well, that would be the dream, wouldn't it? And you would hope that the ideal would happen. I personally think they're addressing this in the wrong way. Again, I know some of the issues, you know, about the debt, which we're adding $1.7 to $1.9 trillion every year. That's not sustainable, so we ought to do something about it. And single issue legislation maybe is an answer to these omnibus bills where they tax something on that wouldn't otherwise pass on its own. And so I understand the concerns that people have, but the budget, for example, why is it that we pass a budget, which is really not debated, it's just continuing resolution, and then come back and say, well, we ought to raise the debt limit to accommodate the budget? That's just backwards. We ought to sit down and say, first, how much are we going to spend? Let's agree on how much we're going to spend, which includes any borrowing that you're going to do, and then create a budget. That would be the more logical approach to take. How much can we spend, and agree on that, then create the budget and how we're going to divide the monies up. So that's something that the Republicans really ought to be pushing. I think it would solve a multitude of problems, certainly be more representative and transparent to the American public as far as what they want and how they want to spend their money. That's where they ought to focus rather than this circus we see today.
Okay, you mentioned a circus today, so is this going to impact the average Utah?
Well, it will if we continue to spend like a drunken sailor and have no sustainability on our money. I mean, we're at $33 trillion now. We thought it was a crisis when they were approaching 20 trillion. And now we're at 30 trillion and adding. I mean, mind you, we're adding 1.7 to 1.7 trillion dollars to the debt every year. That means we're spending that much more than we take in, almost $2 trillion. Think, why do we think this is going to work out happily ever after? We have a real problem here we've got to address. I think the Republicans really have been the party of fiscal prudence, although with Trump, we lost our way. And I blame both sides of the aisle for being fiscally imprudent. So let's address that. That would be a major step in the right direction. And we ought to focus on the process, how we can do that, and have consensus being built on how we spend the money. And guess what? Compromise is not a dirty word. Our founding fathers found it very useful when they created the Constitution. So we ought to come together. We have a few ideologues in there that say it's my way or the highway. I want 100% of the loaf. I'm not going to agree to half of the loaf. And we have the tail kind of wagging the dog right now. That's not good policy creating.
Well, Governor Herbert, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us briefly today and add your expertise and knowledge of what's happening and its impact here.
Well, thank you. And let me just tell you, I'm very strong and bullish on the states. States can figure ways to get this done, and we can do it for less money, less costly, and more effective policies. I'm not too high on the federal government right now as far as being efficient on anything. And the dysfunctionality is on, I think, display here today, and that's disappointing to all of us.